Yeah, we'll do it live. Here we are once again. Larry Mastropieri, broker owner of the Mastropieri Group, based right here in Boca Raton, Florida, alongside myself, John Laws, representing Discover South Florida. Before we get started this evening, I want to take a moment to congratulate Larry. For the third year in a row, Larry has sold more homes in Boca Raton than any other realtor. So that's a big deal. I mean, Larry, I know how hard the guy works, but it's nice to see that effort pay off. And for the record, he did not tell me to do this. So Larry, just want to take a moment to say congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I know how hard you work at it. So definitely wanted to take a moment to appreciate what you've been able to accomplish so far, and hopefully many more big things to come. What was also big? That's right, 2025. It's our year again. So. Speaking of big things, I don't know if you were there last night at your alma mater, FAU, but it was the Boca Raton Bowl. And at this time of the year, you know, if you're a fan of the sport, heck, even if you're just a fan of sport, there isn't a lot on TV. I mean, you got your NBA games, your NHL, some of that. But, you know, if you're a football fan, which, I mean, I think a lot of us are, you know, you take in football however you can get it. And sometimes that may be some of the lower tier bowl games. So when you have a case like this, you're just hoping it's going to be a good game. I'll tell you what, Larry, it was actually a very good game. Western Kentucky taking on James Madison. And for people who aren't familiar with the background, James Madison has only been at the FBS level for, I believe it's like their third season. So for them to have this opportunity, it's a big deal. I mean, they were doing very well at the FCS, which is formerly known as NCAA Division 1A. Those are like those D1 schools, but it's a little smaller, like where I went to college, although they will be FBS starting next year. I digress. James Madison, very good game. It was one of those that, you know, the Dukes were completely outplaying the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky, but Western Kentucky would, you know, like complete one big pass to get them back into it. So the game was close up until about the final 2 minutes, but James Madison winning 27-17. It's the Dukes' first bowl win ever. So congratulations to them. Yeah, like, you know, because again, and if you're the sponsors of these bowl games, it's like you just want it to be decent so people are still watching, because obviously at this point with the college football playoff and stuff, you've got all these other bowl games that you're like, oh geez, well, you know, where do we go? As long as you got sponsorship and they're putting it on TV, as my dad would say, if somebody wasn't making money, they wouldn't do it. So whatever the case, it seems to be working out. And, yeah, it's a nice little plug for FAU and South Florida, because, you know, they had the trophy like right there on the beach. You know, when they would come out of commercial breaks, they would show it. So, you know, it was nice to see Palm Beach County get some love.
This is relatively new for them to host the bowl game, right? It's been, I don't know.
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, it hasn't been that long, but obviously when you have something, when you can bring a nationally televised bowl game to your area, you know, I mean, it's good enough, because the reality is until you get to like some of those top tier bowls, they never sell out. I mean, you can see it on TV, unless you're, you know, traveling with the team, you know, like it's somebody, you know, or you're a diehard fan. You know, you'll get some of the locals out there, but for the most part, it's just about the television coverage, you know, so. It was I was happy to see that it was a good game. I mean, honestly, that was all I was asking for. And we certainly
locally, it's a bunch of fun. A lot of my friends have gone and they've had a blast. So
I actually thought about it, but I got lazy.
You live walking distance.
Yeah, actually, no, not walking, but it was kind of close. No need to rub it in. If I had known anybody in the game or was on the coaching staffs, I would have considered, but I didn't, and that's on me, and I got to live with that. So, anywho, now that we've gotten the bowl game out of the way and all the big news, it's time to talk about Coral Springs, which is a community that I have to admit I have not spent much time there yet. And you know, I feel like it kind of gets overlooked a little bit. You got Parkland, you've got some of the other ones right there, but what is it about Coral Springs that comes to mind for you when you talk about that community?
When I think about Coral Springs, my first thoughts always go to multifamily investing. So that's where personally it goes for me. So I think about a lot of things from a multifamily investing perspective, and Coral Springs is a really good market. It's really dense. There's a lot of people there. They're commuting to. There's a lot of service business. They're commuting to the cities. And so it's a great market. It's a great market to, it's a great place to have family. It's a good family city. So there's a lot going on in Coral Springs. And I think when you first come down here, and maybe you're like, for me, like I was at FAU and then was spending time in either Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm, or Boca, Del Rey, like you don't really think about Coral Springs. To your point, I think that's how you're thinking about it right now. But if you go to Coral Springs, and I've sold so many homes in Coral Springs, you get to know it's a really nice suburban city, and
Right.
relatively more affordable than some of the other cities locally. So
interesting. Because like I said, I see that map and I see Parkland, and unfortunately it's one that, it's kind of always top of mind for all the wrong reasons based on the tragedy from a few years ago. But Coral Springs, I was doing the research, looking up some of the nice photos of the area and stuff. And what do I see? I see the City Hall and the downtown community. And they have this nice, not a statue, but a piece of artwork that's out in front that it's like a sun and it's got the diamonds coming out of it. And yeah, it's a true story.
True story.
We keep it. I was like, oh, that's a very nice looking sculpture. Okay.
They're developing all around that City Hall right there. And we'll get into that.
The building looked new, for sure. And as we kind of move into the community initiatives and news, they won an Emmy Award for Traffic Thursday series. That's interesting.
So while we were doing this, preparing for this live, I put through it on one of the screens and I watched the guys. It's basically the cops run around pulling people over, giving people tickets, doing their thing, right? So kind of like a live police show, which is kind of neat. And the guys are good, man. They'll
get you publicity, right?
Yeah,
every time I see that first 48, having lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma for several years, that first 48, it's like they're like one of the 2 or 3 cities that's always on it. And I'm like, oh, wow. I was on the sports side of local news, but there was enough that I would see interviews like with police officers and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't know you, but I know you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And this is them announcing the Emmy Award that they received, right? For this show, Traffic Thursdays. So pretty popular, and they've aggregated millions of views. I mean, this video just came out 3 hours ago. They got 11,000 views on this thing, which is cool. And you can see this is them just running around. He's just cruising around doing his thing, just pulling people over. It's great.
And I understand this makes me a hypocrite too, but it's like when I see stuff like that doing so well, when it looks so, it's live, like they're just doing it off the cuff and it's winning awards. I'm like, are we hurting that badly for entertainment? Is that like I said, I know that totally makes me a hypocrite, but I'm just saying that.
Well, dude, we're doing the same thing right now.
I know. I just want to at least acknowledge that I'm being critical, but knowing at the same time, pot calling the kettle black, the whole 9 yards, whatever analogy you want to throw in there. All right. Well, congratulations to the city of Coral Springs for winning an Emmy. That's epic. Wow. Yeah, that is epic. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Light Up the Lawn, that's a festival event featuring a downtown tree, which is adorned with twinkling lights synchronized to holiday classic songs. The light show occurs every half hour, and they do that all through December. In fact, it runs from December 7th through the 31st. So, as long as you don't have, epilepsy or anything, it's a nice event that you can always check out if you happen to be downtown Coral Springs. I did not know.
Pretty cool. This is kind of what it looks like. This is pretty neat. Yeah. Dog friendly, the whole deal.
See, there's the sun. There it is. That's what I'm talking about.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So this is pretty cool. They got this going on, and that's right. And it's right off one of the main roads in Coral Springs. Pretty easy to access. It's popping. So, yeah.
Well. All right. So you have all that with Coral Springs, and I'm going to keep that in mind if I'm looking for something to do. So let's get into the development projects. I know this is always your favorite thing, and there's certainly some going on, as you had mentioned. We have here the Cornerstone Plaza, which is a mixed development place developed by La Boca Partners, and What else do you know about Cornerstone Plaza? Have you been by there?
So they paid $16 million for the dirt, 7
Mhm.
acres of land on this thing that they're going to build on. Pretty wild. 49,000 square feet of retail space.
That's a lot.
700, yeah, and 704 luxury apartments combined from the north and south block, which is pretty interesting. So the south block is Moderna or Madura, and we'll talk about Madura in a second. And the north block, it has about 353 apartment units, 24,000 square feet commercial space. So there's this like combined multi-phase massive project all next to City Hall, which I'll share with you here. So you get a scope of what this looks like. I mean, this is what we're starting to see in all these cities in South Florida, right? You're getting large apartments coming out of the ground, developing, improving the area. And the cities are working with these massive developers to make this happen, because the reality is there's not enough room for people to live here and buy homes and so on. So the density is just increasing more and more. And we're seeing this everywhere. So Coral Springs is not exempt from the same thing we've talked about in Pompano. Just maybe it's a little different, right? You're getting a lot of waterfront, high-end luxury condo builds in Pompano, but you're also getting a lot of apartment builds. But we talked about a lot of the luxury condo builds, and here you're seeing a handful of luxury or just quality apartment construction projects going up to again supply the massive population growth that we're seeing. So,
So are they trying to establish more of a downtown? I know the City Hall, it says in front of it, downtown Coral Springs, but with so many of these places, particularly I think of like Boynton Beach, they're trying to establish what is very distinguishable as what would be downtown versus everything else. Is that what's going on with Cornerstone and some of these other projects?
That's what they're calling it, right? So every downtown has a little bit of a different vibe, right? As we know, and there's so much going on in Coral Springs from my experience. You got things going on at the mall. You got just great restaurants and retail establishments scattered throughout Coral Springs that it's just not all happening in one spot. Like Delray Beach just has this very unique feature where so much is happening in one area, and it's all kind of come together very nicely. This is, and just like every other city that's after the fact, is just trying to create that and cultivate it. But they've already got stuff everywhere, because again, the density in Coral Springs is high all throughout the city. And so, yes, they're calling it the 136 acre downtown Coral Springs, right? Off of University and Sample Road. So just for context, this is kind of what it looks like, I don't know, recently, right? It's getting close to being done. So they finished this section. They got some cool retail down here on the first floor, which is nice, kind of creating that downtown environment. And then they're working on the next phase, right? And this is all, if we drive virtually here. So this is all around. I mean, they're just developing all over this area. You can see where it's at, right? And this is Coral Springs City Hall, right?
Right.
And then
I was going to say real quick that it's interesting how I feel like we're almost observing what would be the modern day equivalent of like the Old West, when towns would just pop up like overnight and they just kind of build a quick street with all these buildings. But I mean, it's seriously with all these communities in Palm Beach and Broward County, I mean, we're looking at like the birth of a downtown, if you will.
Yeah, and I think the value of talking about this from a real estate perspective is, if you're looking to buy or sell in these areas, it's good to know what's coming or happening, because that's going to drive value or help you sell your property if you can communicate these stories, right? Hey, you know what's going to happen here? They're doing this, this, and this. Before you know it, this property is going to appreciate significantly. You should get in at this number if you're a listing agent, right? Talking about it. If you're the buyer's agent and you're running around here, or you're a buyer looking in these certain areas, it's good to know what's happening, because they're cleaning up some of these maybe less desirable locations with awesome new construction. They're bringing in a lot more people they're putting in a lot more retail, which just again supports like the desirability of the location if you're in proximity to those things. So, and that's what we think about when we're targeting investing, right? So,
yeah, well, and you mentioned Pompano a little earlier, and I know you said, and I quote, "I'm very bullish on Pompano Beach." Do you get that same kind of feeling with Coral Springs and what they have going on?
So, it's funny. When we started investing in like 2010, we used to be like, oh yeah, Boca, that's where we're staying. We knew it really well. And we were just like, this is, Boca has this allure, right? And then as time went on, we're just like, man, you could have literally picked anywhere in South Florida and probably been okay for the most part, right? And so that's kind of the theme, I think, with South Florida. I think if you're looking to relocate to this area, you just got to figure out what your vibe is. Every one of these cities has a different vibe and a different price point for a different quality of asset that you might be buying, as an example, or renting, right? So it's about like what type of home you want to live in versus what you want to pay for it, and then the atmosphere you want to be in. If you want to be in the Boca atmosphere in East Boca, that's one thing. If you want to be in Pompano, that's another thing. Coral Springs is out west. It's 25 minutes to the beach, right? If you care about that, then maybe you want to be in one of these coastal cities versus Coral Springs, right? On the other hand, Coral Springs might be a little bit more affordable, might offer some other advantages, like proximity to where you might be traveling, right? For work or something like that.
Right.
There's the Sawgrass, right?
Where you're a Florida Panthers fan, and I find their arena to be Amarant to be much closer to the west side as opposed to putting it by the beach.
Totally. So if you care about those things, then you're inclined to be in this area.
I do. I'm going to the Blues game tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's one of those things. That's why it was kind of on top of mind the one time they're in town a year.
And you know what? Coral Springs is kind of big. Like let me show you on the map here for reference. Like this is like a big city. I mean, this is a big area. Like if you're on one side of Coral Springs trying to get to the other side, it takes some time, just like Boca Raton does. Or it's relatively big. And if you're like living, say, in Eagle Trace and you want to commute south, like this is super efficient. But if you're trying to commute south and you're like up here, I mean, that's an extra 15, 20 minutes of drive time to get down here in traffic sometimes, right? So
are most of these communities pretty new?
There's a range, but I'd say you have more of like the 1980s vintage stuff versus what you see in like East Boca, which is 60s, 70s, even maybe 50s, right? In a lot of cases. So, and to get a 1980s product in Coral Springs affordable than if you would buy a 1970s product in East Boca, right? And you get a better quality house. If you're buying a 1980s product, you'd have probably higher ceilings, right? No cast iron plumbing, things like that are considerations when thinking about asset quality and comparing them, right? So yeah. So
and part of the reason I ask is, we go on and on about this all the time with most of the new developments, like from GL Homes or Toll Brothers, whoever are building those planned communities. Obviously, they're always out west. So when I think of Coral Springs being to the western part of Broward, I'm like, oh, so by default, are they all newer spots? But
not all brand new.
Not as much as gotcha.
Coral Springs is pretty developed. Parkland has more newer stuff, and we'll talk about that in future episodes.
Oh, don't tease it too much. All right, so here we go. We got the Madeira Coral Springs, as you mentioned. These are apartments that are being developed by Mill Creek Residential. This is a two-phase project, and this one, I guess, has been in the works for a little while. Larry, what do you know about Madeira Coral Springs?
What I thought was interesting about this project, and then we'll talk about it, is the spend on these projects. Like we've talked about big projects in Pompano on the beach, high-end condos. I mean, they're spending real money here too. $65 million for phase one was the projection for the construction loan, and $82 million for phase two, which is a substantial amount of money. I mean, some of these other projects that we've talked about are hundreds of 100, 150, 200 million. Even I think we've seen some as high as 300 million. But this is a substantial amount of funds. On this specific site, which is just adjacent to downtown as well, or City Hall, right? You have about 2.9 acres, right? And 351 apartments. And it's a pretty cool project. Those units are range in size from like 650 to 1,500 square feet, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom type units. And they got a lot of amenities in this project, which is nice. And I'll show you on the screen here some of the amenities. They talk about roof deck with sweeping views, resort style pools with spacious sun ledge and outdoor grills on the pool deck. They talked about a number of other things, all scattered through here. HIT inspired fitness studio with spin bikes. They got it all in this building, which is nice. This is going to be really cool. The projected completion date on this one is 2025. They're finishing stuff, but 2025 is when these two projects really are finished completely. Madura and Cornerstone Plaza. And again, like Madura is just behind Cornerstone because Cornerstone's right here and Madura is right here. City Hall right here. You got post office. You got it all going on. Bank of America. Yeah, it's all.
I feel like I'm watching Sim City or something.
Yeah.
Now here's a question. With all that growth happening right around City Hall and whatnot, how much collaboration goes on behind the scenes with all these different developers when we get into a situation like this? Because I'd have to imagine there would be some of it, because you can't just have the commercial space but not have the residential developments. It's like you got to have all the facets. So how, in your experience, I mean, how much of that goes on behind the scenes, if you will?
Well, you have you have multiple people, multiple entities involved in the project, right? The city is directing what their expectations are from the project, which is influenced by the citizens of the city. There's multiple notices to people to show up and think through this. This is not a simple overnight thing. This could take years to get one of these approved. Sometimes they move faster, though, depending on the circumstances. And then also you have the banks that are lending this money, and the banks that lend this money, they don't just lend you usually, $200 million out of their own pocket. They might go work with a few other investors to diversify the risk. So now you have all these other Wall Street guys involved in a project that you think was just money from one lender, and maybe it's not, maybe it is. And so then on top of that, you got the maybe the big player that's involved, and you get all the contractors that come in and do the work, right? So there's a lot that goes into this.
And those city planners, man, they stay busy.
Yeah, that on top of that, then you have the real estate guys that are trying to find restaurants that will lease the space, and they're trying to get people to commit to leasing certain locations in advance, and that's part of like loan terms that are identified, and how quickly can we lease up after we're done, and all these types of things to meet that specific debt service coverage ratio that they're targeting. So there's a lot involved for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What's neat about this too is, everything's here. You got the hospital right next to City Hall. Like there's a lot in this little sector, and it's dead center Coral Springs. So
the City Hall is the epicenter of Coral Springs, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So we now have the Metropolitan Coral Springs, which these are apartments being developed by Ascend Properties. This located at 9000 Ramblewood Drive. Larry, I guess, did Metropolitan just open? What's going on with the?
Yeah, let me show you on the map. This place looks pretty sharp. And again, this is a different price point, right? 37 million construction loan. It's just interesting to me how these prices are. Like, this guy's building this for $40 million or whatever, and it's 204 units, 8 stories tall, 4 acres. They paid 2.2 million for the dirt. So pretty interesting. That feels like a good deal from my perspective. Like that feels like a good execution. What do I know? But it feels like a good execution. And again, 1, 2, 3 bedroom luxury apartments. And so let's take a look at this real quick. So you can kind of see, this is what one of the photos is of the building. They're active. This is where it's located. And Ramblewood's a good area. We've sold a number of homes in this little section here. I like this this is a pretty desirable neighborhood, or these associated neighborhoods: Maplewood, Ramblewood, all these right here, even up here, Forest Hill. Good little neighborhoods, 1980s vintage homes for the most part in this area. But yeah, this is where they built this one, and it's right around the mall here, which is kind of neat. So, and that's kind of what we're starting to see more of, and I think what makes for the highest and best use of a mall. If you can put up hundreds, thousands of units in that same area, it becomes very cool because you can like walk downstairs, get to the mall. You know,
I say I can't be the only one where it's like convenience goes such a long way.
Totally, 100%. So they built this on the corner, right? Which is kind of nice. They got and I've gone to this movie theater a number of times because I've sold a number of friends' homes that lit in Ramblewood specifically. So this is a desirable area. And so what's pretty cool is they built it on the corner, and it's a cool little project. Let me show you here. How do I show you this? The Metropolitan. Here's some imagery of what it looks like, right? So yeah, pretty cool project. And I don't know how much they're renting for off the top of my head. Actually, I might have the stats here: $2,000 to $4,000. So, you know, you can expect a 1-bedroom to maybe be around $2,000, which is not the cheapest.
No, I was about to say, I was like, wow, that's seems a little pricey.
But again, full service, secure, you know, community, easy to get a rental in if you're relocating to the area. I bet you they're pretty full. These buildings usually do really well. This is kind of what they look like. And this is, yeah, here you go. That's a perfect image right there. Yeah. So.
Seems to be a popular style right now. And I wish I was more familiar with architectural styles to just like, oh yeah, that's a such and such. But no,
I think you're doing great though.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right, as we move along, let's talk about some townhomes. We have the Sunset Trails by Lennar, developed by Lennar Corporation. Go figure. Wow, this is a 19-acre project. Are you familiar with these Sunset Trails?
Yeah, let me show you the location. Yep, here we go. Take a peek. So this is where it's at. Okay, right off Wiles. And so this is a little
way
bit
west. Uh-huh.
Yeah, way west. But again, arguably efficient. You know, you're right here, bingo, on the Sawgrass. You know what I mean? That's pretty quick. Like, and so you can get east really fast. And that's one of the tricks. Like when you're in this area and you're trying to get east, I mean, the Sawgrass can be super efficient. And if you're trying to get south, then you're out west. Because just for people's context, like this thing gets you all the way down. It gets you all the way down here, Sunrise Mall, all that good stuff. And then boom, you're east-west. I mean, all the way to Naples and all that really quick. And so if you're commuting to Naples frequently, this is
actually, yeah, that's not bad.
It's an awesome location because just from where we are in Boca, the effort it takes to get from Boca all the way, here's the Mastropieri Group right here, bingo, all the way to here is a mission sometimes. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Say I don't tour the Everglades very often.
So circling back to this is a 19-acre project, as you mentioned, and their sizes are between 1,300 and 1,900 square feet ish, and 144 townhomes. That's pretty substantial in this little space. So
definitely,
yeah. So that's, I mean, where the heck did I lose it? Here we go. Back up. But you can see that they're, you know, this project they're knocking this thing out. It's good to go. And they've done a good job here. Lennar's pretty good at execution, just like GL or some of the other big builders in the area.
Well, and it seems like all the big builders are involved here. I mean, we've rattled off on these new developments. I mean, it's like a different developer for each one. And I feel like we haven't seen that a lot lately. Usually it's like 2 or 3 and they are doing everything.
Yeah. That's true. When you get to the, well, if we're talking just like single family home or townhome builds, like for the most part, you're playing with Toll Brothers, Lennar, GL, right? There's Pulte, we've seen a bit. And Ryan Holmes is right up. Oh, you can't see this right now. Ryan Holmes has got a project. Let's see. Lennar just did a project here. Another one. This is Parkland, just for context. Ryan Holmes has another one. Where the heck are they? They're right over here too. I was just in it, right up here. So anyway, long story short, those are the players down here for the most part that are building single family homes. When it comes to like apartment buildings, a little bit of a different thing. And then when you get the high rises, you probably have like 10 real players, right? So yeah.
See. Okay, so that will bring us to, what do we have next here? We have the Logar Village, which is also townhomes. But here we go. Romero and Pazmino are listed as the developers on this one. Larry, what do you know about Logar Village?
You can see, like, what's interesting about this is you can see that, not a lot of big developments. They're squeezing these things in. It's usually hard to pull off like smaller projects like this because it gets a little cost prohibitive, right? But they're knocking some of these out, and hopefully they can make money and get these done. Maybe they bought in at a good price. Maybe they have some good efficiencies with getting materials and so on and so forth. But this is an 11-unit project. So smaller project. Let me show you again where that's at. And here's what it looks like from the top. So kind of a compact, efficient style, right here, which is nice. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1-car garage, 2 parking spaces in the driveway. So kind of an efficient build, right?
That is very efficient. That is tight. I mean,
Yeah, and they're looking to do, sell these things for 600 plus. It was expected to be completed by the summer. I'm not sure that this is completely done yet. So I think they've
got optimism. That's what they have.
Yeah, they have optimism. So here they are. Let's show you where this is. So this is like random, right? It's like tucked into this random location.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it a random location. It's just kind of random to see a construction project kind of pop up. We're not really seeing like small ones like this everywhere. So we talked about the neighborhoods that I like generally have sold houses in and kind of like Ramblewood, Maplewood. It's right here. It's all it's in this sector where we've sold a bunch, right? So, so good little neighborhood, good little area, and it's probably good for these guys even behind. I know they have construction behind them right now, but like getting this all developed and cleaned up is probably good for them. So, and what's neat about this is like you can see, as I mentioned, in Coral Springs, you just have like a bunch of different restaurants and things going on the strip. There's a bunch of just good, like Big Bear Brewing Company, just a bunch of different Miller's Ale House, like the Red Lobster. They just got everything over here. There's so many things. Like you just keep cruising around and you find more stuff. Whenever I'm out in this area with friends, I'm always at like somewhere new. And so proximity to the mall, there's obviously a lot going on at the mall too. So it's not like the Boca Mall, right? It's not like this super, super fancy mall, but it's not a dying mall.
Right.
So
you're saying it's not Boynton?
It's not the Boynton Mall.
Well, the current one, right?
The current Boynton Mall, yeah.
Okay. So now we have City Village, and this one is being developed by Amera Corporation. The site cost of $4.6 million, located off Sample Road. Larry, City Village is still in the works. What do you know about it?
Let's talk a little bit about it here. I'll pull it up for us. So a little bit of history about me. I used to be an engineer. For those who don't know, I used to work as an engineer, and I used to work just outside of Coral Springs. I was going to show you on the map here. Like I used to work in basically Coconut Creek at the landfill over here, which is kind of interesting. So let me show you on my screen. Coral Springs is adjacent, not to deter people from moving to.
I was going to say, and I'm sure it smells great.
Yeah. It's actually, they do. I did it. Maybe I'm immune to it from working there for so long. But I worked at the power plant there. So, but what was interesting is you could see it right here on the map. This is where the Wheelabrator North Broward power plant once was. I had left before they actually shut it down, but this power plant is no longer in use or in operation anymore. But it was a big trash incinerator power plant for a long time. So this is just outside of Coral Springs. This is more Coconut Creek, but you cruise right in here off of Wiles Road, and it's right off of Sample, right behind Sample. But this is the location of the city village. So 21,000 square feet of commercial space. They're expected to complete phase 1 in 2025. 300 rental apartments. So it doesn't look like, I don't know, I haven't seen that they've gotten a loan on this yet. So maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but I haven't seen the stat there. So this is going to be a nice big project in this corner. And again, we talked about like just location and efficiency. This is a pretty good location because you can pop east pretty quickly. And you can also get west right off. Sample's a good efficient road to be off of in Coral Springs. It can be a little busy, and again, there's just like a ton of retail, like up and down, as I mentioned earlier. There's a lot going on in Coral Springs as far as like just restaurants, stores, shops, whatever. So
and it seems like just so much of it in a very short amount of time, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that's true. So, and again, just for context, I didn't point this out because I just glossed over it, but look where this is. It's right across the street from City Hall. I should have said that first.
I was going to say City Hall is the focal point of everything that's happening in Coral Springs. It feels
and it's what every city tries to do when they're like in let's build something cool mode, right? They're like, okay, let's first get our City Hall super tight. So let's go build our City Hall, right? That's what the CRA does. And then they say everything around the City Hall is going to be the downtown, right? Like Boynton relocated their City Hall to that area, right? All right. So
they did that on purpose. Think of that. Yeah.
For many years. I don't know if they were originally there and they moved, but all I can remember is whenever I would go to the city, it was not in that location prior to them finishing that project. So again, same thing. Boynton builds up a City Hall. Pompano's doing the same thing. They're going to build their new City Hall in a new location. It's and they're going to try to build out around it. They're doing the same thing here in Coral Springs, trying to kind of just build this epic little epicenter, as you said. So
as we keep it moving here, we have a Habitat for Humanity affordable housing project, which you hear talk about so many of these affordable housings for workforce housing, and so often I feel like I don't actually see any of it other than like in a news clip, but they have it here. What do you know about this one?
It's again like it's all great efforts, all this stuff, like this affordable housing, like it needs to be done. They're doing a good job, right? They're trying their best. But like from an affordability perspective, we need a lot more affordable housing than don't get me wrong, 377 units. This affordable housing project is like big. Like that's big compared to some of the stuff we saw in Lake Worth, right? And right, they were doing like 10, 15, 30, 40 projects or properties all in one shot. So 4.2 acre building. They paid $8 million for the dirt. Commercial space, about 11,000 is what they're projecting to build there, on top of, as I just mentioned, 8-story building with 377 units. Wait, is that that's where it was. 13 townhomes. This is what I was getting at. I remember this from before. 13 townhomes.
I was like, wait,
we're pissing in the ocean, baby.
Oh man. Well,
you told me to move it along, John.
I did, man, and you were moving it along. But
I was moving it.
13 townhomes. It's just not enough. I mean, I'm sure they're
making an effort.
I get it.
They're making an effort. That's all we can ask for. And there's not a lot of highest and best use of certain things is not affordable housing down here as usually. Here's where it's located. It's right off a Sample, right?
Okay.
And just a small little project going on here.
That's another one. Just a tight spot.
In some of these areas, this is where you'll find some of the multifamily along like Riverside, right? Which makes sense. Riverside is usually a more of the affordable housing stuff, and then up here we've worked with some duplex owners in this area, and sold their properties. So just generally speaking, this makes sense. That is probably it's a good execution. It's a good use of the dirt, frankly. So yeah.
Okay, so we also have this is a Coral, if I could spell it right, a Coral Springs mixed use site at 3451 North University Drive.
And this is what I was talking about.
Okay, $8 million. I see it.
$8 million for the dirt. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'll repeat myself: 4.2 acres, 12,000 square foot of retail, 629 parking spaces, and 377 units in an 8-story building. 75 one bedrooms, 158 2 bedrooms, 44 3 bedrooms. They got a fair amount of information here. So let's pull this up real quick. Yeah. So I want to show some imagery of what this thing's going to look like. Check this out. That's pretty cool.
It looks nice. I would say, being a graphics guy and doing a lot of video stuff, I'm always impressed by the visuals they put together with these when it comes to artist renderings and that sort of thing.
Yeah, they did a good job here. So look at this thing. Just look at it, John. Just look at it.
I'm looking.
Oh gosh. So check this out though. Look at this. Let
me guess. Is it by City Hall?
It's by City Hall.
That's amazing.
So they're getting after it.
Like they're doing it on purpose.
They got all the corners covered. So again, proximity to the hospital, proximity to the downtown area. There's a bunch of retail in all these sections that they're building on. This is just like Boynton, where I would say a little bit better than Boynton in some cases because they're actually executing on some stuff.
Do you think cities give incentives to these development projects to put them near the city hall?
Yes. Well, yes. And also remember, like, the city decides the master plan along with its citizens, but like the city is going to say, hey, you're allowed to build this massive thing here. Versus other areas, they're not going to allow them to build this like massive project in some cases, just because they have different plans for that other area. It might be, we want more of a residential single family home section over here, and we want the high rises over here. And so they try to aggregate everything in different areas for different reasons. And so, so they're incentivized to make this happen. I'm sure there's other incentives as well. So, yeah.
Interesting.
They may have, so for example, CRA may have aggregated this land in advance. They may have sold it to the developer. Like, we see all this type of stuff. In West Palm, we're working with, I think we mentioned this before, but we're working with a guy who's a developer in the area, and he's aggregating different parcels. And as soon as he gets X amount of parcels, the city will then release their parcels that they've acquired over the years to him. So then he has a complete area to build an 80-unit apartment building on. And so the city might do those things too. Over time, they'll acquire things if other people aren't, just to align with their plan. So that is definitely happening. There's no question.
You kept mentioning some of the food places, but we haven't actually gotten to the specifics of some of the dining options of Coral Springs. Let's get into that now.
Let's touch on some of these.
Let's do it. We have the Divieto Ristorante, which, imagine that, it's Italian-American bistro offering a fusion of classic Italian dishes with a modern twist set in a 1920s inspired theme. This one located at 2729 North University Drive. It was supposed to open in April of this year. I hope it did. I haven't been by there yet.
I don't believe it has. The only two locations that I know of are.
Oh, so this is a chain. I mean, there's a couple of them.
Yeah, there's. There's one in Aventura.
That's a good place.
And then there's one, I think, out in California or something, out way west.
I always feel like, so many of the
West Florida.
Nice. I feel like so many of the restaurants, it's like if they can prove themselves in Miami or, somewhere in that area, and it's like it works there, then we're coming to Boca, baby, or we're going to Coral Springs or somewhere like that.
So I've talked to some of these restaurateurs, and like they like Coral Springs. Again, there's a lot of density there. It's less of a seasonal thing always in Coral Springs. You get a little bit more like annual tenancy, if you will.
That's a great point. Yeah, I didn't think about that. With the snowbirds, that's interesting. How they have to try to plan for those kind of things.
Oh, totally.
I'm looking now at Lavello, which is described as a farm-to-table restaurant featuring a weekly changing menu crafted by Chef Bruno Silva, focusing on fresh, locally sourced farms.
And I wrote a blog on this. So,
we did.
Yeah.
What do you know? Oh, looks nice.
Man. Cool spot. Look at this. Look at this great food. Yeah, good little restaurant. I would highly recommend it.
Oh, I was going to say, I'll have to check that one out. Lavello.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a little while, but it's a good spot for sure.
Okay. Speaking of more Italian restaurants, we have Eddie and Vinny's Coastal Italian, which is a husband and wife team offering fresh seafood and traditional Italian dishes in a casual setting. This one was listed as opening late 2024, located off West Sample Road. Boy, it seems like none of the restaurants open when they intend to, which, naturally it's construction, but it seems like the restaurant business, it's even more so. Am I wrong?
Tough. It's just tough. Yeah, that one.
Well, I know it's tough. Yeah.
They don't have a Google business profile, so they're out. Yeah, they don't have. I don't think they're open. I don't know if they made that happen yet. So they're all targeting season because then they can profit and then hopefully ride it out. And if you miss season, that's got to be not fun. So. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the Veranda Kitchen and Bar, which was supposed to open in fall, offering a blend of traditional Southeast Asian cuisine, specializing in Thai and Vietnamese flavors in a modern setting. This one located at the 2800 block of North University Drive. But it kind of goes back to the point that it's like so much. I feel like it's all coming up together. You know what I mean? Which is kind of cool. Personally, I think it'd be nicer if you could have a few more established before you bring in the new ones, but it's like it's seemingly coming up overnight.
Preston chimed in and said, if Larry was my waiter, I'd tip him extra.
Oh, wow.
Thanks, Preston. That's nice of you.
Oh, man. All right. So moving it along, we also have nightlife and fun activities. There are some other places such as JD's Bar and Lounge. It's listed as a lively neighborhood bar offering classic pub fare, wide selection of drinks, and live entertainment, including karaoke and DJ nights. It's a popular spot for locals to unwind and enjoy a casual night out. I have not been to JD's Bar and Lounge. Have you, Larry?
But I've had friends that talk about going there. So it's like a cool spot to if you're in that area, it's kind of a cool spot to just go meet up. Yeah.
Interesting. So. The one that caught my attention on this list, and maybe because I'm a video game nerd at heart, is the Game Night Arcade Bar and Grill, which combines nostalgic arcade games with a full bar and grill. Game night is perfect for a fun evening of gaming, great food, and signature cocktails. It's a vibrant venue, ideal for both competitive gamers and casual diners.
It's kind of interesting, huh?
That I like how that's described. Competitive gamers and casual diners. I'm more of a competitive diner, I want to be the next Joey Chestnut.
Oh god. Yeah, they got some cool stuff.
That does look cool though.
They're rocking the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They're serving tacos.
I may have to go.
Yeah, look at this. All right. Yeah, it seems like a cool little vibe. Cool place to go.
Sense of company night out.
Crush some 10-year-olds at Mario Kart,
Yeah, and then buy toy collectibles. I'm a nerd. I'm like not that big of a nerd.
Check it out. Look at all the gaming here.
That is cool. That looks cool. Yeah.
That's neat. That is sweet. They got the old school arcade games. All right. This is what it looks like. Game Night Arcade Bar and Grill. Cool. Yeah.
Right. And then we have the Cook and the Cork, which is described as a unique fusion of fine dining and a cozy wine bar. The Cook and the Cork serves innovative dishes paired with an extensive wine and craft beer list. The upscale yet relaxed atmosphere makes it a favorite for date nights or special occasions. Have you been to the Cook and the Cork, Larry?
I have not. There's so many good restaurants in Coral Springs.
I like some of these names. The Cook and the Cork.
Check this out, though. It's like in just a little bit.
Is it by City Hall? Is that what you're saying?
City Hall. Right,
what do you know?
So it's very close to City Hall. But here's what I wanted to show you. Check this out. Here's some photos. Cool vibe, right?
That is, yeah, I like that look.
Yeah. Here's the interior. Nothing like crazy fancy.
No.
But cool little back outdoor area. Here's what it looks like from the outside. Cool place. Yeah, this is worth checking out for sure. Yeah.
They got the nice logo. Yeah.
Look at that. All right. Yeah, this is cool. This is great.
The Cook.
There's so many good places.
Yeah, I was going to say.
As I mentioned, there's so many. We're not even naming like a bunch of them. I've been to so many places in Coral Springs. So.
All right. So if we're going to sample the art and culture of South Florida and Broward County, we have the Art Walk Coral Springs. I feel like every single one of these communities has an art walk. Nothing wrong with that. But I feel like that is a thing. I hope they don't all have them all in the same weekend. This is located at 9405 Northwest 31st Court.
Where do you think that is, John?
I bet it's by City Hall. Is it by City Hall?
Oh, yeah.
What do you know? Yeah. The Art Walk is a premier destination for residents and visitors to experience public art. Makes sense. It features permanent and temporary installations, providing a dynamic space for cultural engagement. That's cool. But they also have an art museum, so that's where it's at.
Which isn't too far from City Hall. It's, If
you told me it was in City Hall, I would have believed you.
Yeah. So City Hall right here, guys. And right here is where the museum is. Yeah, which is kind of nice. Look at this place. It's pretty legit. They got a lot going on here. So, yeah. And that's right next to the police department, which is also right next to a lot of the municipal, parks and stuff like that, which is cool. So.
Yeah. Speaking of parks, they have a water park, Cypress Water Park. I feel like a lot of the water parks that I've seen in South Florida have been towards the west, which makes sense.
That's so true. That's so true.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, and I've been mostly on the east side, so I haven't seen them. I'm like, oh, there are water parks. I'd figured this, Florida be the perfect place for one.
Here's a quick glimpse into Cypress Water Park, right? So again, nothing like super crazy fancy. Big community pool, epic slide, I'm sure. Cool little play area for the kids with water, and then surrounding that we got the basketball.
So that's like a sports complex, basically.
Tennis, pickleball, soccer, and it's a spring soccer.
Oh wow, that's a big one. Yeah,
that is a baseball field. Well, look at all these. Okay, here you go.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the soccer fields. That's interesting.
Yeah,
you got the full baseball, the softball fields, and
yeah. Looks like they use this for a bunch of things. That's pretty cool. I would have loved that.
I was gonna say, I feel like we were burying the lead. I mean, the water park's okay, but that is another large sports complex.
Yeah.
We also have the Florida Panthers Ice Den, which kind of caught my attention just because I mentioned the Florida Panthers and their Amarin Arena, where the Florida Panthers play their games, being kind of in West Broward County. What's interesting, though, I don't believe the Panthers actually practice at that facility. There's a new one that I believe is like in East Fort Lauderdale. So it's like, they kind of have to go all the way across for practice and then come over there for the games.
There's baby Panthers here.
There are baby Panthers.
Baby Panthers.
I'd be willing to bet it probably was their practice facility until recently, if I had to guess. I mean, you don't slap that label all over it if it's not what they're using.
Yeah. I mean, this is cool. This is like
no, it's great. I mean,
this is like exactly what the facility looked like I grew up skating in. This is cool. This is neat. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And for everybody's benefit, for people who are tuning in from outside the area, check out where it is. So
you don't get much more west than that as far as
it's all the way west
goes.
Right off Sample, Sawgrass, pretty efficient spot to be in if you're trying to come from out of the area. Just cruise on down, so the Sawgrass from everywhere else. So I'm sure there's a lot of under 18-year-old hockey teams that are playing in here, right? Which is pretty neat. Florida, this is good. Florida needs a few hockey
and it's funny you say that. I mean,
yeah.
And back when we were kids, and I even growing up in St. Louis, surprisingly, at least at that time in kind of the late 80s, early 90s, there were not a lot of ice rinks. So, if you were, a kid demanding to play ice hockey and stuff, I mean, ice time was practice for a lot of the kids was literally like 2:00 in the morning because you couldn't get ice time. I wonder if that goes on down here too. And thoughts and prayers with all the parents who have made that sacrifice to take their kids to hockey practice at 2:00 in the morning. That's something mine wouldn't do, but that's another story.
2 a.m., man. That's
I know, right? I don't hold it against them.
Yeah.
Much. Anyway, we have the Sawgrass Nature Center and Wildlife Hospital, huh?
Which is right next to the Panthers ice den.
I thought you were going to say City Hall.
Right next to City Hall. No.
A peaceful retreat dedicated to wildlife rehabilitation and environmental education, which makes sense. I mean, you are literally like right by the Everglades.
Yeah, which is pretty cool because this just offers like a cool nature area. The huge lake park, which is neat.
That is nice.
Yeah. So
I gotcha.
And then you can stroll over and have ballet class.
Hockey practice, whatever the kids need, they have it there.
Again, pretty good family, city.
It looks like it for sure.
Nice family city. So, yeah, I think that's it, right?
I think we have touched on everything, unless there is something else you would like to discuss regarding Coral Springs or anything else South Florida.
Oh, you know what we were going to talk about, which we didn't, which I feel like is just worthy of talking about, how South Florida is sinking into the ocean.
Oh, that's right.
The new report. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, haven't they been talking about that for like 30 years?
No, but this report just came out in December of 2024, so very recently, right? Mm-hmm. And they were measuring from satellites if any of the buildings in Miami and along the coast, mostly the Miami or south of Broward County area, if any of these buildings were sinking into the earth. And come to find out, there's a fair amount of them sinking into the earth. Not a fair amount. I don't know.
Are we talking about like the high rises and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And they said like 35 they found that were systematically sinking.
Oh, I believe
not like sinking because they're settling because they're new construction, but still sinking today.
Because it's not built on bedrock, and they had to build these huge buildings.
They're saying there's a number of reasons they think it's happening. One is they think the limestone might be cracking. They think the tidal flows are affecting that. They think the vibration from all the activity, the building and everything in the areas around it are affecting it to sink. Sand is shifting, to your point, same thing. And also they talked about the water table a bit. And so this is like proof, like real proof. And they did this study from 2016 to 2024 of hey, this is like a thing that's happening. It's I think they said, what did they say? 2 to 8 centimeters, with the most significant effects observed in Sunny Isles Beach and lesser impacts in Surfside, Miami Beach, and Bal Harbor. It's interesting when you bring up Surfside, you think about that other building. They were studying that other building. Mm-hmm. Guess what? That other building didn't show settling. It didn't show that it was sinking into the earth the way they were measuring it. So it doesn't necessarily this isn't the main reason, the only reason why a building might fall over, but they're talking about how they should put they should test the buildings or study all the buildings in the area and then and put a database together so prospective buyers can get in there and like make a decision on whether they feel comfortable buying a building that's about to sink into the ocean or the earth.
I mean, I'm being super dangerously. We'll give you a discount.
Yeah, yeah, could be a good deal. Oh, so that's something to consider. And they talk about how they've only studied a few areas and how they should be studying Broward County more, Palm Beach County more, and looking at these things. Now, the movement is subtle, but it's substantial enough that they can measure this with satellite from outside of the earth.
It's crazy. Yeah. But now, I guess my question is, you mentioned the Champlain Towers and the collapse. So when they're sinking, this is affecting the structural integrity of the buildings. This isn't one of those where I'm picturing like the houses going into the sinkholes.
Yeah, no, it's not like that sudden, right? It's just subtle. And so I'm not an expert at this. Let's just like say that, right? For starters.
But I play one on TV.
Technically, I play an expert on YouTube here. So let's talk about it. I think these buildings are systematically and uniformly sinking into the earth. And again, 2 to 8 centimeters is what they measured. The research revealed sinking rates ranging from 2 to 8 centimeters, with the most significant effects in Sunny Isles. So if you're in Sunny Isles, move up to Palm Beach. We're happy to sell you a home, something that won't sink into the earth, and we'll take good care of you, right?
I was going to say, right. I mean, I feel like, every Eastern European and Russian immigrant I've met resides in Sunny Isles.
That's true. That's true.
Or Brickell, one or the other.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what does this mean, though, was my whole thing when I went through this article, and it didn't really state like, hey, this is like an obvious, like if a building is sinking at 8 centimeters a year, you have real problems. It didn't say that. Like there was no like quantification of like, how does this, these are a bunch of scientists putting this report together saying, hey,
they don't know what it means. They're just showing you what's happened.
They're just giving you data and telling you these things are happening. Now, other people I've talked to are interpreting this as like, told you, I knew Miami was sinking into the ocean, right? And I knew in the next 10 years, Miami's going to be underwater. And,
right. Everything is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Totally. So I don't know if I believe in that entirely, in the fact that like Miami's going to be underwater in 10 years. So I'd love to hear, more constructive, discussion around what the results of this report really means for people who live in those buildings, who might buy in those buildings. Like, is it going to be a problem? Is there solutions, contractor solutions to prevent these things from getting worse? And then they talked about, hey, well, we should be measuring, buildings and seeing if there is not just uniform settling, but like, non-uniform settling where like half the building is sinking and the other half isn't. So they have aspirations of doing, soil samples, which is a requirement when you build anything, frankly, in South Florida, to determine what kind of, foundation you need to put in. And they talk about all these things. So it says, the importance of monitoring. The study emphasizes the need for ongoing research and satellite-based monitoring to ensure the safety and stability of coastal buildings, particularly as urban developments increase. And so that's a thing. And super interesting. So this is to be continued. This discussion here. We'll see where that goes. Yeah.
Say, and you know what city isn't sinking? Coral Springs.
And we tie it all back in
there. So we'll leave you on that note then. For Larry Mastropieri, I'm John Laws. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a happy and safe holiday. I guess we won't be on next week.
TBD.
Okay. All right. Just
we'll
making sure.
Santa hats.
All right. Sounds good. We'll see you all later.
See you guys.